Everyone comes to us for two reasons. I want to get more clients and I want to learn, or I want to know how to deliver better results without trading time for money. So if people have a client acquisition problem, most often it's an offer issue or a messaging issue. And the messaging and the offer stem from who are you serving? So tactically, most health professionals right off the bat will do a lot better in business by just focusing on a single target market. And to clarify that, not overwhelmed moms. That is an avatar, that's a market, but it's not a problem. And what we help our clients really understand and figure out and help give them direction around is, cool, overwhelmed moms might be the who within the market, but what is the what? What's the problem they're dealing with, right? Are they, losing their temper with their kids or whatever it is? Like, there needs to be a problem, because if there's no problem, no one's seeking a solution for that.
Welcome to another episode of Health Coach Academy podcast. I'm your host, Omar Cumberbatch of OmarCumberbatch.com. Excited to share today's guest. I am sure you know him. He is probably all over your timeline. And the reason he is because he is the master of ads. And you see, like, again, I would bet money that you know Yuri Elkaim. He is the CEO of Healthpreneur. And the way that he is so effective is because of his mastery of ads and getting in front of his ideal clients, who are us, the health professionals who are really looking to get in and build our businesses. So I know you're going to love this particular episode. He's phenomenal. And I'm a big fan, of course, just because of the massive success that he's created for all health coaches and people in the wellness space. So I'm definitely going to be really, really excited to hear your opinion on him and what his amazing tips are. He really drops a lot of gems. As always, please leave a rating and review on iTunes, because that is the way that I get such awesome guests like Yuri on the show. Also, of course, take a look at the website where you can go and take a peek at the podcast creation course. Really got some extra bonuses coming up in there as well that you're going to be really, really surprised with, and I know it's going to be super beneficial to you and anybody else who you know who is interested in creating podcasts. Let's jump into the show. Hey Yuri, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm awesome, Omar. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's an honor. Like I said off air, I'm a big fan. I see you online all the time, and very fascinated to get to know you. Just in general, we had a little conversation off the air, and I definitely, think that you're someone who I would want to be, right? So specifically because you've conquered like the health stuff and then kind of graduated to this understanding of the entrepreneurship. So I would definitely want to get into that journey.
Yeah.
So if you could tell a little bit about your origin story and how did you master that initially? And then what made you kind of, not to necessarily change direction, but could discover a new passion just to help wellness entrepreneurs in this specific space?
Yeah, for sure. So what's cool about I think like us health professionals is we all got into this because we had our own health challenges at some point. I mean, you had the sugar stuff. For me, it was I lost all my hair when I was 17 to an autoimmune condition. And previous to that, my dad's Moroccan, so I had a lot of hair to begin with. So there was that. And then I also wanted to play pro soccer. From the time I was 10, I'm like, I want to play pro soccer. That's all I want to do in this life. And I was just like dog and a bone committed to that. So I was very fit, but I didn't realize that I wasn't healthy until I lost all my hair. And I was like, why did that happen? That's not normal. So it's an autoimmune condition called alopecia. And so it kind of sent me down this rabbit hole on trying to figure out like why that happened. So I ended up pursuing studies in kinesiology because I was interested in the human body. And then I went back to school afterwards to study holistic nutrition. And during that process, I was really like, how do I put some of this into practical use? And so I started training clients while I was still a student at the University of Toronto. And I really enjoyed applying what I was learning and more importantly, seeing people transform. Like I really, really got a lot of gratification out of that. However, I put that on hiatus. I actually graduated and then played pro soccer for 3 years. And then eventually when I was about 24 and a half, I decided, you know what? I actually don't want to play pro soccer anymore. So came back And that's when I really went kind of head down deep into the health journey. And I actually was able to regrow all my hair in the space of a couple months when I
Wow.
went back to school to study nutrition because I started to realize, oh, my body was a toxic wasteland. And so I cleaned everything up and my hair grew back, but I kept my head shaved because by that point it was about 8 years and it was just, you know, easier that way and my claim to fame a bit. About 7 years later, I lost all my hair again after getting a shot, which was a story for another day. But nonetheless, I was learning things that I was just so blown away by. And I'm like, I need to share this with more people. Around this time, I started getting really burnt out working with clients.
Mhm.
I'd been doing, the training and nutritionist stuff for about 7 years by the time this is now 2005. And I was working 12 to 14 hours a day, trading time for money, overworked, underpaid. And I was like, I can't keep doing this. I love helping people, but I'm like, I'm not at this, not at the sacrifice of my own happiness and health.
Mhm.
So this is just when the internet was becoming a bit more prominent. And I was working with a mindset coach at the time who said, why don't you just like start a website or something? I was like, well, I don't even know what that is, but sure, let's give it a go. So we set up a website, had no clue what I was doing. This is the end of 2005. And then I took 2 weeks off from training clients and I actually created my first product, which was a follow along workout program for 12 weeks. And that was my first kind of initiation into productizing my service and started to move from one-on-one to now helping more people online. And I was like super pumped. I'm like, got this amazing product. Like it's like $67. People could buy it from the website. And then nothing for like 6 months. So I was like, this is, it's kind of frustrating. So for the first 3 years of my transition from the in-person stuff to online, I struggled big time. Like I had little to no income coming in. And I was transitioning away more and more from my in-person income to building this dream online, but there wasn't really much traction online. So I'm like, maybe if I just put more time into this, it'll work. Lo and behold, I didn't realize that I was just missing vital skills and some guidance and structure. So eventually in 2010, I got some coaching, and that was the inflection point to my business. So that business was helping the general public with health, weight loss. I was a generalist, right? I wasn't specializing in anything, which made the whole journey a lot harder.
Mhm.
But when I started to learn about how to actually run a business and the importance of marketing and how to do that stuff, that's when things started to take off. And then, we eventually built the company to several $1 million. We helped 500,000 people to better health. I became a number 2 New York Times bestseller. I was on Dr. Oz, the doctors, did all that stuff. And it was great. But I like, by this point, I'd done this for 13 years now. And I started getting a little bit tired. I'm like, I think I've said everything I can say. At the time I had maybe 1,300 videos on YouTube,
Wow.
with 300,000 subscribers. And I'm like, I don't know how much more I can talk about nutrition and health. And by this point, a lot of my personal time was actually building the business. And around 2015, 2016, I had a lot of other health professionals in our space start asking me for business advice. Like, hey man, like what have you been doing to grow the business? I'm like, well, let's just jump on Skype or Zoom and I'm happy to answer some questions. And it happened over and over and over again. And I started to think to myself, well, what if this is my next chapter? There's obviously a big gap in the marketplace. I want to be able to help as many people as possible improve their health. But what if I could help other health professionals build better businesses so they could help more people? And collectively, we reach more people. And that's where the genesis for Healthpreneur, which is the current company I run, came from. And I spent a year trying, like, really going through a lot of imposter syndrome because I had identified as a health professional for almost 15 years. And all of a sudden, I'm thinking, well, what are people going to think of me? Are they going to say I've sold out to become this business and marketing guy? And it took me a year to get through that. So
Mhm.
that was very interesting because I'm a very fast action type of guy. But I was really afraid of what people were going to say about me, which is, yeah, something I don't really give a shit about anymore. But nonetheless, I had a transition and eventually I did. And then I sold that business and went full in on Healthpreneur. And now we basically help health professionals build scalable coaching businesses without the grind so that they can build a business that they love, that serves more people, that makes them more money, but ultimately transforms more lives because a lot of health professionals, as you know, are working within a model that's broken.
Mm.
And it's broken from the patient or client's perspective in the sense that they don't really get the care or result or outcome that they deserve. And the practitioner is literally a slave to the clock. I was talking to one of our clients yesterday, 200 clients one-on-one. She's burnt out. She can't even function anymore. And this is the story of pretty much everyone that comes to work with us. And it's really sad. So our mission is to help them build better businesses that help them live a more sustainable lifestyle, but also help their clients achieve better outcomes with their health. So that's the journey in a nutshell. And it's been great. And I love everything I do about it. It's awesome.
Well, that was a very powerful introduction to you and your business and how you basically your origin story. So I want to definitely dive into a couple of points that I think I find fascinating, just especially going through so many episodes that have gone through. I've compiled about 200 episodes at this point. We're talking with people like yourself. And the one thing that shoots out, and correct me if I'm wrong, you weren't necessarily good at business and you had to get some help. And that's kind of the evolution of kind of what we were discussing at that point from your transition from this health wellness person into like this business coach.
Yeah. I was a very, very good technician, as most health professionals are. Like I was very good at helping people understand how to make the complexity of health simple. I loved physiology. I loved biomechanics. I was a strength and conditioning coach at the University of Toronto for 7 years. I loved that world. Like it was my life for a long time, but I was horrible at everything else. So sales, marketing, I didn't even know what those were. I had a really big issue with getting people to part ways with their money. Like even when I was a trainer and someone had to pay $1,500 for a 3-month package, it was very like I was terrible at asking for that exchange because I thought I was putting people out. But
Mm.
the reality is it took me a long time to realize that selling and serving. And so that was a huge, I had to go through that journey and, money mindset stuff, whatever. But I think, very much like a lot of health professionals that I've worked with, I just wanted to help a lot of people, but I was a martyr in the service of others. So I'm just like, well, maybe, uh, you know, I can just work with a lot of people one-on-one and that's great, but that's not sustainable. So when I came online, I'm like, well, maybe if I just share all the stuff I know, people will eventually come and work with me. And it's like, it doesn't happen like that. Like the big difference online is no one knows you exist. If you're in person, at least you've got a clinic or a gym. People walk down the street, they're like, oh, cool. There's a chiropractic, clinic or a gym. I can walk in. That never happens online. It does not happen. So I call it the field of dreams. Like the field of dreams doesn't exist online. So if no one knows who you are, no one's doing business with you. So you could be, I mean, we probably both know, Omar, like a lot of really smart people who no one knows about. And that's unfortunate because a lot of people, a lot of health professionals are like, I'm really amazing at what I do. No one does what I do. I'm like, that's great, but no one knows who you are. So it actually doesn't matter how good you are. So I was that guy. So I was really good, great content and like blah, 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 all that stuff. But I didn't know how to generate demand or attract leads or how to convert leads into paying clients. I didn't know how to necessarily, do all that stuff. And those are things that I had to learn. And it's still a huge mistake I see a lot of the people in our market make is they don't want to learn that. They want to delegate it or outsource it to an agency. And I'm like, that's one of the worst things you can do because it's a fundamental skill that you'll have for the rest of your life. And you're outsourcing the most important piece of your business, arguably, which is acquisition. Like if you have no one coming in, it doesn't matter how amazing your service or your program is, no one's going to benefit from it. So, I really beat the drum of all of us have to become as gifted entrepreneurially, if you will, as we are technically. Like you might have this amazing skill set, but if your business acumen is this, it doesn't matter. Like you really want to expand that business skill set. So there's a beautiful marriage of technical ability and business ability. And the most successful, the most like all the big people, all of us see out there, they're very good at what they do technically, but they're also behind the scenes a lot of times very savvy with their business because they've been in the trenches for a long time and they've learned stuff. And most of them, yes, have people around them to support them. But a lot of them have had to go through the journey as well to learn these skills. And that's a really important thing that I had to learn the hard way. And it's still something a lot of people are learning the hard way.
No, absolutely. And you definitely brought up a couple of points, especially like the mindset component. You did mention imposter syndrome, which I know
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of health coaches deal with. I'm curious, and I don't want to dwell on it too much because there's so many things that I want to get into the business part of it, which definitely encompasses imposter syndrome in a sense. But it's interesting to hear that you felt like you were an imposter during that transition into, like, say, a business coach, but you still were able to sell that business for seven figures, right? So it means that your business was really, really good and lucrative.
Yeah.
How could someone who's has a valuation in that context have imposter syndrome, or is that like a ridiculous thing for a normal person to ask?
Well, I mean, if I were giving myself advice now, like 7 years later, I'd be like, dude, like, what the F? Like, don't be such a little baby about this.
Mm,
Because the reality is, imposter syndrome comes about, at least in my mind, from we're not good enough in the eyes of other people to some degree. We're worried about what other people are going to think about us if we do this thing. And to be honest, I think it's actually a really good thing for people to struggle with. Because if you suck at what you do, you should 100% have imposter syndrome
mm,
because you're an imposter if you're trying to sell services for something you can't deliver on. And that's okay. It means, I think, for most of us, that we actually care about doing a good thing or service or job for other people. The complete opposite side of the spectrum would be like a sociopath who's like, I don't care, I'll just do it anyways. And that, unfortunately, there's a lot of people who are very skeptical online nowadays because there are a lot of coaches out there who don't do a good job. And I think the reason for that is because there is such a low barrier to entry to become a coach. Like,
mm,
you just say you're a coach. That's it. Like, to become a doctor or a neurosurgeon, there's a very high bar to entry. And you're not seeing people like, oh, I've done this neurosurgery stuff. Like, these are all scams. Like, you don't hear that. Like, there's just such a high barrier to entry that there's no nonsense. But when you get into the online world, anyone under the sun, including very young kids who think they can help other people build a business and have never done it themselves, this is what people are seeing over and over again. So there's a lot of skepticism and mistrust. And I think part of that kind of bleeds itself sometimes into our psyches. Now, at the time, I didn't really think of that. And for me, it was more about I've been this fitness and health guy for my whole life, like 15 years. And now I'm going to shift to business. Like,
mm,
what if I, what are people going to say? What are people going to think of me? And when I say people, I mean like people I don't even know. I'm just like random followers on YouTube, email subscribers, people who've purchased our stuff. I'm like, what are they going to think about this?
mm,
Which is, when you logically think through it, it's kind of ridiculous.
mm.
And then the second thing was, what if I suck? Like, yeah, I mean, I built this great business, but what if I can't replicate the results for others? And I think there's a good amount of, I think it's a good, as I mentioned, like, I think it's a good thought to think because it means like you actually care about helping other people. And to be honest, it's still something I think about all the time. Not that I'm good enough, but I obsess about helping our clients, right? Like, I
Mhm,
don't work one-on-one with, we've got 340 active clients. I don't actively work one-on-one with all of them. We have an amazing team around me and systems and so forth. I do a couple calls a week with them and I really enjoy it. And I told them, I'm like, just because I don't work with every single one of you guys individually one-on-one, it doesn't mean I don't lose sleep every single night thinking about how to better serve you,
mm,
right? Because I want to create a business whereby every single client wins. And maybe that's a utopian universe that doesn't exist. I don't know. Because I think in everything there's the bell curve, right? And I think we've seen that. And some people just are going to win no matter what. Some people are going to struggle. But I think for me, at least, it's a mission that I'm committed to pursuing to say, cool, bell curve, maybe. But what can I do? What can I control in terms of how I show up, how our team shows up, how we improve our product so that more people can win? How do we
mm,
help even the weakest link in the chain succeed? And maybe they don't ever. But I think us pursuing that goal of constantly making it better and better and better is important. And that kind of stems from this, seed of imposter syndrome of what if it's not good enough, right? I don't want to be seen in the marketplace as someone who is, not doing a good job. Because I truly put out good stuff. And it's, you don't stay in business for 20 plus years scamming people and doing nonsense because your reputation is everything. So I think that imposter syndrome, there's a healthy piece to it
Mm-hmm.
because you care about your reputation, you care about helping other people. And at the same time, a lot of times, if you've got a proven track record, you're good enough already to help people. And it doesn't mean you stop growing, but you're at least a couple steps ahead so you can help others along the way.
Mm-hmm. So out of the 340 clients, is there a common theme that you see that's overarching that most health coaches, health and wellness professionals are lacking? What's like the number one thing that you've noticed that is hindering them from actually succeeding in their businesses?
It's a lot of this, it's weird because it's a lot of the soft stuff. So the let's say like tactically, the biggest problem I see in the market in general, even in conversations I have with people on social and stuff, is a very pervasive lack of clarity around the problem they're solving.
Hmm.
A lot of health professionals can help a lot of people, and that's a double-edged sword because just because you can doesn't mean you should. So when I ask them, I'm like, hey, like, what type of clients do you work with? What's your niche? I get a paragraph of an answer with like, well, like I have this, I'm like, just tell me what problem you're solving. And they can't because they don't know. And as soon as I see that someone typing that or saying that, I know their business is doing a whopping $0. Everyone comes to us for two reasons. I want to get more clients and I want to learn, or I want to know how to deliver better results without trading time for money. So if people have a client acquisition problem, most often it's an offer issue or a messaging issue. And the messaging and the offer stem from who are you serving? So tactically, most health professionals right off the bat will do a lot better in business by just focusing on a single target market. And to clarify that, not overwhelmed moms. That is an avatar. That's a market, but it's not a problem. And what we help our clients really understand and figure out and help give them direction around is cool, overwhelmed moms might be the who within the market, but what is the what? What's the problem they're dealing with, right? Are they, losing their temper with their kids or whatever it is? Like there needs to be a problem because if there's no problem, no one's. So that's tactically the biggest issue that we help solve right off the bat. In certain cases where some of our clients don't see the types of results that they would want or we would want them to see, it's usually because of lack of clarity around that, what we call a profitable problem. They're very adamant about I just like they're not as coachable, and so they're less receptive to some of the feedback, and they start going down these paths of like just really vague generalities, and it doesn't convert. So that's tactically the first thing. From a soft perspective, like soft, like the intangibles,
Mm-hmm.
it really, really is. It's a skill set thing and a mindset thing. So number one, a lot of coaching adults is actually very interesting. I've got four kids, and it's actually not too dissimilar working with adults. I think most adults are kids in adult clothing
Mm-hmm.
because what happens is when things are great, people are happy. As soon as things don't go well, that's when the real person comes out of the shadows. And when I say when things don't go well, I'm not talking about they're filing bankruptcy. I'm talking about the smallest little minutia doesn't mean anything. Like I spent $10 in ads and I don't have any clients yet. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's just get a little perspective here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of people in business who are not as experienced in business don't have the mindset yet of what it takes to win in business. They're looking for overnight miracles. They think things are going to be easy. And I tell people, like in all of our marketing, that it's going to be friggin' hard. We're here to make it easier and simpler, but in no way, shape, or form is this meant to be easy,
Right.
right? Anything great takes time and it's hard. If you're not okay with that, that's cool, but you're not working with us. like if people are like, I just want to make some passive income. I'm like, that's a pipe dream. You're never going to get passive income if you're not, if you're just making a couple grand a month. Like that's not even part of the vernacular I would use, because growing a business, like, yeah, you can create passive income to some degree as it grows, but it's not like you can whip together a course, put up a checkout page and expect people to buy it and you're not doing anything. Like that world does not exist.
Hmm.
And I really hope to not see that in people's, conversations, because it's a mindset that doesn't serve them, because they think they can get a lot for nothing. So
Hmm.
there's an immaturity around the mindset that I think holds a lot of people back. There's also a mindset around, um, and it's very interesting with our market because most health professionals invest a huge amount of money to go to school.
Yeah.
But then when you ask them to invest in their business, they're like, well, I don't know, I'm going to save up for a couple months to. I was like, hold on, like you're here because you can't make money on your own. Because if you did, you'd already be there, and we're here to help you do that. So how somehow are you going to do that on your own? I don't know. So they're very willing to invest 100, 200, $300,000 in school. They're hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. And then when it comes to growing their business, they're trying to do everything on the cheap or for free, which for me blows my mind. And I get that there's obviously skepticism and stuff they've done in the past that didn't work, and they're looking for guarantees. But I'm like, what guarantee did you get when you went to school? Like,
Hmm.
you got a plaque, you got some technical skills. There's no guarantee of anything, but you dropped 300 grand, right? Did all the students in your class get the same grade? No, right? What's the difference? Same teacher, same curriculum, everything's the same. Each individual student, how they show up, that's your guarantee right there. Can you show up? Cool. So I think there's again, coming back to like a bit of an immature mindset around what it takes to actually succeed in life and in
Hmm.
business. And then like on the skill set side, it really comes down to there's just like a gaping hole in skill set. Um, just the three biggest skills, I would say: persuasive communication, magnetic messaging, and being data driven. So
Hmm.
a lot of health professionals are very feely, which is fine. Like
Right.
I would say I'm a very woo woo guy, but I'm very pragmatic. If you talk to anyone on my team, I live in spreadsheets half the time. I
Hmm.
love data and I used to hate it. But if you can't drive your business by the numbers, you're not going to make good decisions. And so it's like, well, I'm going to feel my way into this. You're done. If you can't put together words that connect with people, which is the messaging side of things, you're done. Doesn't matter if we're talking about a social post, an ad, an email, a webinar. Messaging is everything online, or just in person, even. And then third is persuasive communication. So whether we're talking about speaking from stage, talking onto a prospect on the phone or on Zoom, if we don't know how to do that, we will lose. And as I mentioned before, I was terrible at this stuff. Like I had to learn and I build these skills. But the thing is, like, all of us can learn this stuff, right? We're
Hmm.
not born with sales skills or the ability to put words in front of people that move them. So I think the ability to understand that the reason you're not where you want to be, it's not that there's anything wrong with you, is you just don't have the skills, right? But the cool thing is like it's a video game. Like you can go to level one and beat Bowser and then
Hmm.
acquire some skills and tools and you go to level two. And it's the same thing in life and in business is just stacking those skills and becoming better as an entrepreneur, because technically you're fine. Let's just build the skills on the business side. So it really is a combination of like a skill gap, some immature mindset, and then tactically kind of like a real big general lack of clarity around the niche they want to serve.
Yeah. No, those are the common themes that I come across all the time as I interview people. And I'm just curious, what do you do in your company that kind of addresses those gaps? I'm really
Yeah.
curious to see how you get past some of these different things.
So I'm really proud of the fact that probably the most thing I'm most proud of, like with what we do, is the personal growth our clients go through.
Hmm.
Because when you put yourself out there and you go through hardship, there's a tremendous amount of like up and down, right? We all go into the dip, those moments of despair. That journey is real. Like, and I've been through that. We've all been through that. And that's a very worthwhile journey to go through, because you either quit or you persevere. And where most people go wrong is they quit and then they start back at ground zero and then they just keep doing that circle over and over again. So I'm really proud of the fact that we help our clients become who they need to be to have what it is that they want. And part of that means really helping them. So a big piece of what we help them do is we help them build systems and build skills. So on the skill side, we talk about persuasive communication. We spend a lot of time with our clients on helping improve their messaging so they can write better, and persuasive communication so they can have better conversations that lead to clients paying them money so they can actually help them transform their health. That's probably one of the biggest areas of growth, because in a selling conversation, at least how a lot of health professionals approach it is they don't like sales because they're not good at it and they don't understand it. And I was that guy for a long time. And asking a stranger hard questions isn't easy. So being able to lean into that and build the skill set of asking someone a hard question in a quote unquote sales or discovery call isn't the easiest thing to do, but it's also the most important thing to do. And because it isn't easy and it's important, there's a lot of growth that has to happen there. So building those skills really helps our clients grow in their confidence, standing in their power, like knowing their worth, all that stuff. So we help very tactically on a daily basis, help them build those skills that are massively important. And then on the system side, we help them build out the systems and install them in their business so they can attract leads with more predictability, with paid traffic as well as organic. We help them convert leads into paying clients, whether that's how to have a conversation with someone if you're on social media in the DMs, or if you're on a phone call or a Zoom call with someone, how do you actually lead a conversation that feels like a casual coaching call as opposed to being salesy and pushy? And then we show them how to deliver great results, whether that's one-on-one or in more of a leverage group model. So those are kind of like the main systems that we help them build, because if they can have more systemization in their business, then their business can work for them. And they amplify that with the right skills to allow those, what they're doing in the world to be more amplified. So really for us, it's like to help them scale. It's a combination of systems and skills. And those are kind of like the two primary categories or the two primary pillars through which we help them grow themselves and their businesses online.
No, I love it. And you kind of did mention it in that particular answer. Got to have marketing, right? So that's the thing that's the key. And you did mention paid ads versus, organic systems that you come together to get people in the door. Can you talk about that a little bit? What are the benefits of both? I know a lot of people, including myself, I'm in a love-hate relationship with social media and one of those kinds of things. And, it's not the only way to go, but there are a lot of value to stepping in that arena as well. So can you go over that a little bit? Because you got to get people who, like you said in the beginning of the show, they got to know what you do and they got to know what you're about.
Yeah.
So
I have a lot to say on this. So my first business was, for the first 7 years, 100% based on content marketing. So this is even before social media. So Facebook wasn't in existence when I started online. It took me 7 years to make my first $1 million in my first business. And that was largely with content. So blogging, YouTube, etc. That's all I did because that's all I knew to some degree. When I started Healthpreneur, it took only 7 weeks to make $1 million. So instead of 7 years, 7 weeks. And the difference was that I had way more leverage in the form of using paid traffic, right? So we were running what we call our perfect client pipeline, which is the system that we've run our business on and probably generates, since our inception, 95% of our revenue in business. Social media ads on Facebook and Instagram, driving people to a webinar, masterclass, and from there, booking a call if they're a fit. And that's the system that we've run on. And the beautiful thing about that is that it's very predictable. Like when you know your numbers, like you can reverse engineer how you want to get where you want to go very predictably. The challenge is that when I started Healthpreneur, I had 13 years of business experience already. So for someone to do that from ground zero with no skills, no experience in business is kind of dangerous unless you have the right kind of coaching and guidance and system to make sure you're not, donating money to Facebook. So the benefit of paid, and this is a big message that we've been kind of beating the drum on for many, many years, is that you don't need a following. You don't need to have a website. You don't need to have anything online You can have a message, an offer, and hit go on your Facebook ads, and you can be in front of more people than you would if you posted every single day for a year organically.
Mm.
And that's just the nature of leverage, right? So when we look at scale, I talked about systems and skills. There's another piece of leverage, which is capital. When you use money in the form of advertising, like if you post something on Instagram or Facebook, very few people that follow you see that. So
Mhm.
let's say this number of people see it. But if you amplify anything on social media with money, 20 bucks a day, 50 bucks a day, you're basically making a barter with Facebook or Meta saying, here's 50 bucks. And Meta's like, cool, we'll show it to this many people. And you're like, cool, awesome. Let's see what the data says. All right, didn't work out. We'll pause that and try another one. Oh, this one works. Cool. What if I give you 100 bucks a day? Well, we'll show it to this many people. And you're like, cool, let's do more of that. And that is very exciting because we've had clients go from 0 to 7 figures in 3 months with
Mm.
paid traffic, which you will never do organically. Never. I've not seen it. Even if you go viral with a video, it's very rare that you'd be able to generate that kind of revenue. Now, I'm not saying everyone does that because they're obviously, you have to be on top of this stuff. You have to know what needles to move. You have to understand if things are not converting the way you want them to, how to fix stuff. And this is why I don't suggest anyone run paid ads unless you work with someone who actually knows what the hell they're doing.
Mhm.
We spend, 6 figures a month in advertising, and we've been profitable every single month for 7 years. So we
Mhm.
teach our clients exactly what we do. And we only ever recommend we only recommend to them what we have like brutally tested. As an example, we tested earlier in 2023, we spent $180,000 on a test to look at is there a better way of what we're doing to show our clients? Like, let's just make a small variation to what this perfect client pipeline. So we ran $180,000 of our money to test this out, and it didn't work as well as we wanted it to. So therefore, we're never going to mention it to our clients.
Mm.
As opposed to like what Facebook does is they will use you as the guinea pig. So if you set up an ad account, you get one of those calls from like your Meta marketing rep. It's like, hey, Omar, you should definitely try out some carousel ads. And you're like, okay, they're looking to use you as a guinea pig. And
Yeah.
that I think it's terrible, but whatever. So the paid ads give you a huge amount of scale when you're doing it right. The flip side is that, well, I mean, the way we do it, you're not really going to lose a lot of money if you're pruning ads properly. But again, if you don't know what you're doing, obviously you can lose your shirt. So if you want to go fast, paid traffic is 100% the way to go.
Mhm.
I have no patience, so I want to go as fast as possible. The downside to paid traffic is there's a tremendous amount of skepticism because there's very little trust built when people see an ad. There's a
Mhm.
lot of resistance to advertising in terms of how most people interact with ads. So although it can bring in a good influx of traffic, a lot of it's cold. The conversion rate through the whole process is going to be a little bit lower than if it was like a referral, right? So naturally, you have to be aware that conversion rates across the board will be a little bit lower than if we're talking about people who followed you on social media who already knew, like, and trusted you.
Mhm.
Nonetheless, it's still a very, very viable option. Content and social, I think, is the biggest opportunity for everyone in the long term. But the key word is the long term. And I think a lot of business owners approach their business with a very short term timeline.
Mhm.
So they're looking for instant results when they have 10 followers on social media. And it's like, cool, well, I don't want to post every day. Okay, well, you're going to post once a month and you think you're going to grow your business? It's never going to happen.
Mhm.
If you're going to play the organic content game, you have to understand that it's not free because it's using your time. And your
Mhm.
time is the most important thing we have. So it's not, maybe monetarily free, perhaps. In the grand scheme, it takes up a lot of time. It doesn't have to if you have the right systems and the right types of frameworks, but whatever. So you have to understand like where you are. A lot of people start off by saying, well, I'm not at a revenue where it makes sense to run paid ads. And I would say, okay, that's fine. I would also argue that it's also the best time to run paid ads if you're good at what you do, but it's okay. Let's start on paid or on social. And if you're playing social, like the benefit is you're putting out content that's building know, like, and trust of people. It's adding a lot of value to the world. And if you want to be around for a long time, it is the single best thing you can do to build your brand. Because I'll tell you this, like so I didn't do any social media for Healthpreneur for the first 3 years of the business. All we did was paid traffic, our perfect client pipeline. Like it was like blinders on, nothing else. And then a couple clients were like, hey man, like you should really just set up an Instagram account. I'm like, well, I don't want to take pictures of my lunch and all this nonsense. I had this view of it, right? And they're like, yeah, just give it a shot, just have fun with it. I was like, okay, cool. So we set it up and did some stuff and eventually built a bit of traction there. Um, and then a couple years later, I was like, you know what about YouTube? Because by this time I had more bandwidth and a bigger team and so forth. I'm not a one-man show, which is also another very important thing because you just can't do everything by yourself, obviously. So when we started YouTube, it was actually like a repository. It was almost like a Dropbox folder for videos. Like we had no rhyme or reason to what we're doing. It was just whatever. Not much traction. And then about 2 years ago, we're like, let's actually focus on this. Let's actually put out really good stuff and put a little bit of thought behind it. And I told the team, I'm like, I do not care what comes from YouTube in the next 5 years. I don't care.
Mhm.
We're going to track the metrics, but I don't care what comes because it's not for now. It's for the future. And this is the big distinction. I think content marketing is amazing when you don't have to rely on it.
Mhm.
And I think when you look at a lot of the big influencers, like, the Hormozis or the Lewis Houses, the Mel Robbins, like all the people who have millions of followers, they can play the content game because they don't need to play the content game.
Mhm.
They've already built huge businesses,
Yeah.
right? And when you look at, and again, there are obviously other people who built big businesses that have relied on content from day one, but it's a very long journey.
Mhm.
So why I love paid traffic is that it fills the gap very quickly when it's done properly. And once you have a bit of bandwidth, then you can build for the long term with content. That's the play that we've been playing. So what's interesting with YouTube is I am, I think out of all of the platforms that we currently have access to, there is nothing more powerful than YouTube, maybe podcast,
Mhm.
because I think the time on brand and intimacy is so undeniable. Like, and I mean, I knew this because our other business, obviously, we had 300,000 subscribers. It generated a lot of business for us. But even with Healthpreneur, I'd say from about 8 months ago, and we only have like 10,700 subscribers, I think. But about 7, 8 months ago, I started noticing clients who are enrolling in our coaching program mentioning things like, yeah, man, I saw like your hashtag winning video this past Wednesday put me over the edge. That's what got me in. Or like I've consumed all your videos and I knew this is the right direction. And so we started seeing that pretty consistently. And I was like, all right, this momentum, this snowball effect is starting to take place. And that's, I mean, like I knew I was putting good stuff out there and I knew sometimes when a video wasn't as good, not based on the feedback, but I'm like, yeah, I could have done a better job. But I also know, regardless of what was coming in revenue wise, that this was going to start taking off. And we see stuff in the comments like, I don't know how this channel doesn't have more viewers or subscribers. I'm like, hey, it's all good. It's going to come.
Mhm.
Um, so the content I think is really powerful because it builds trust in a way that you will never build with paid traffic. The challenge is that it just takes forever.
Right.
So my advice for most people is if you can start with paid traffic, but only like disclaimer, huge bold underline, only do so like with someone, not an agency, but like learning the skill to do it properly yourself,
Right.
because then you will never be at the mercy of someone else who's not as good as you are. We've made the mistake in the past with a lot of expensive agencies, and well, I mean, I could talk about that another day. But if you learn the skill from someone who's done it and been there and whatever, it's a very valuable skill to have. And it'll help you go from zero to where you want to go a million times faster than content will. The
Mhm.
content is so powerful, but you have to understand at what point it makes sense, because if you're a one-man band, there's only so much you can do at once. And I understand there's a lot of people as well that, they're making not a lot and they don't have the luxury of running paid ads. That's fine. That's totally
Mhm.
okay. But you have to give your time if you don't have the money. And that's going to come down to content and social, and you have to play that game.
Yeah.
There's no, like, other than holding a sign on the corner of the road, there's nothing else you're going to do. Like, you have to get visible and you have to put stuff out there. So either you're using your money or your time.
Mm.
There's no in between. And so it's just understanding like what in the moment is more valuable to you. Like, if money is more valuable to you, like you don't have a lot of it, then you got to use more of your time. And if you're super busy and burnt out, you don't have a lot of time, then you have to use your money because otherwise you'll burn out and you can't scale. And I think just being aware of where you are on the journey, can really help with that decision.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you did bring up all these things because it is obvious, and I don't know if it became obvious to me a couple of years, say maybe a couple of years back, that you're really outlining the framework on how to exist online.
Yeah.
And that's the distinction. Just like you said, mentioned earlier, you're not walking around with a sign, come into my
One of
office or
those like
anything.
wavy blow up things on like a car parking lot.
Right, right. So this is basically the only way to have that wavy thing for your online practice. So
Yeah.
definitely appreciate it. Listen, you've been fantastic.
Thanks, man.
I could talk to you all day about this stuff. I had a whole bunch of questions that I had that I didn't even touch, but that's just a testament to your ability to describe a lot of the things that are on the health coaches' minds that I wasn't necessarily aware of and really, really bring it to the forefront. So I want to give you an opportunity to just let us know where we can continuously find all the good stuff you're doing, how to support your YouTube channel, all the available content that you do have, and even just some of the courses and how we can get some support from you and your staff. I'd love to share that with my audience.
Yeah. I mean, again, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate being able to share what I can with your audience because we serve, health professionals and people that are health enthusiasts. So thank you for having me. Um,
Very good.
again, as I said, like I think our YouTube channel is really, I mean, I don't hold anything back. I mean, I get very into the weeds with a lot of stuff. So if you want a lot of my best stuff for free, just go to YouTube. It's at Healthpreneur, and there's literally hundreds of videos. Like, just
Mhm.
watch all my videos, take notes, apply it, and you'll be like, oh my God. Um, other than that, I'm on Instagram. If you want to hit me up in the DMs, just you can follow me. I'm at Healthpreneur. Just send me a DM. Just tell me, hey, I listened to you on Omar's show, loved it. Let's have a conversation. If we can support you in any way, shape, or form, happy to find out if there's something we can do to support you. Otherwise, that's probably the two best places. Yeah.
Yeah, no, listen, again, really appreciate that time that you've taken. Like I said, I'm a big fan of yours. So I
Thanks, man.
want to just share those thoughts with my audience. And I think that we're going to have a lot to hear from you in the future, obviously, because there's so many valuable nuggets that you provided us with
Cool.
today. So have a great
Thanks so
rest of
much,
the
Omar.
day. All right, take care. Hope you enjoyed listening to today's episode of the Health Coach Academy podcast. If you did, jump over to iTunes and leave a rating and or review. It goes a long way in helping get this message out to our fellow health coaches and people in our industry. Also, if you can, jump over to my website, omarcumberbatch.com, where I give out a lot of freebies, including my 5-day sugar challenge for people who are having issues with sugar. And also for health coaches, I have the book, Hidden. It's the 6 not so obvious ways to get your clients unstuck. Have a great day.